Us California boys from LA aren't used to the cold weather. So let's go outside and see what the snow is like. Well, day number 2, we've got a list of fittings that we need to get. There's a few hardware stores here in Jackson Hole. Hopefully they've got most of those plumbing fittings. I'd be surprised if they had the bulkheads, but I'd be quite pleased if they did. So we're going to take a drive into town and try to pick up those parts.
So before we make that drive in the snow back into the city, let's just go ahead and slip that retrofit metal halide lighting system into the canopy just to make sure there's not any additional items that we'll be in need of. As you can see, it's an aluminum reflector that will mount on the underside of the canopy. This reflector holds 3 250-watt mogul-style metal halide bulbs, as well as 4 T5, I believe, 24-watt true actinic fluorescent bulbs. And after a quick trip into town to the local Ace hardware store, we were able to find all of the fittings that I needed, all except for those 2 bulkheads. So with the fittings that we do have, we're able to advance forward. In particular, I can now complete the plumbing on the big circulation pump. In addition to the large union ball valves, here's the 2 45 elbows that allow me to make a slight jaunt in the plumbing without restricting the flow much, and how they attach to the underside of the tank. Again, this is the large circulation pump. It will draw directly from the tank via that strainer, make an elbowed turn inside the internal overflow, which in turn will lead down to the big circulation water pump. Here's that strainer that'll draw directly from the aquarium. We're now ready to glue it into place. The trick at this point is we're actually trying to glue 3 different fittings at the same time. This bulkhead that'll attach to a stub or a piece of PVC pipe inside the internal overflow, and then the elbow to the stub, as well as another stub into the bulkhead at the bottom of the internal overflow. And this is all separate from the return line from that large circulation water pump. That return line that'll lead to the sea swirls at the top of the tank. So it's now time to glue those pieces into place. And within just a few moments, we've not only got the right-hand sea swirl set up and glued, but we've also got the left-hand sea swirl glued in place, along with its
Union fitting there. Once again, if we have to remove that sea swirl out of the tank, and again, its whole intended to create kind of random or variable water movement within the tank. The line runs over to this side. I think what I'm probably going to do when I come back is incorporate another union fitting right over here. And the reason for that is we'll be able to remove that entire pipe out of the system, because when it comes time to putting the live rock into the tank, I don't really want to have to be reaching over that. So I'll probably incorporate that extra union fitting in there, but that takes care of the circulation side. Again, there's the intake or suction for the water pump. It comes through the overflow down into the big 3,600 gallon an hour water pump, which in turn discharges back up through the overflow, rises up there, splits into a T. There's one half of the T going to one sea swirl, and then the other half of the T going to the opposing sea swirl. So that's what's going to create circulation within inside the tank. Now, the next thing we want to start working on will be the filter system, and that's over here. We did run to the hardware store this morning. You might be surprised that Jackson Hole, Wyoming doesn't have a huge selection of pipe fittings, but they were very helpful, and we were able to come up with a new discharge manifold. You can see there's the discharge off the pump, comes up to that T that I spoke of. There's the ball valve. That hose barb there will lead down to that hose barb with some soft tubing, and that's what introduces the water into the protein skimmer. We did realize that there is an inline probe, and I think what I'm going to end up doing, and I think that probe is either for pH or salinity, what I think I'm going to do is end up putting it right here, because the rest of this is all slip fittings, whereas that's threaded fittings. So there is our filter system, and I'm going to again assemble that. One of the things that we haven't discussed a whole lot yet, and of course in Wyoming you wouldn't think it would get hot, but with 750, almost 800 watts of light on top of the tank, there's going to be a little bit of a heat influence. So this unit does incorporate a refrigeration unit, which we haven't really unpacked yet. But where do you think we're going to put that refrigeration unit? Not down here. What we're going to do is there's shelf brackets up here, and we're going to put some more brackets, and the chiller will actually be on a shelf above the aquarium. And then as it turns out, there's the ballasts for the lights, so we're going to put those also up on the shelf up there. Our carpenter, MJ, is going to somehow create a duct, whether it ends up going through that header and discharging the heat into the garage, or possibly up into the false ceiling, which in turn will lead over to that exhaust vent that has an additional booster up beyond it that'll help pull the heat from that chiller, and then that gets discharged outside somewhere. So at this point, I think we're ready now to start on the filter system, knowing that we've completed now the internal circulation system.
So before we work on the filter system anymore, let's go outside and play around a little bit in the snow. I have to admit, as I mentioned earlier, it's been 30 years since I've been out in the snow, and the thought that if it continues to snow like this, we might end up snowed in and not able to get back home.